Hello, we have a problem, and by we, I mean everyone that is traveling our gorgeous country. You know what that problem is? Internet. In places like the place we're at behind me. We're in Coles Point in the Eyre Peninsula, and it's the most gorgeous free camping spot, and the internet is really bad. So there must be a solution, right? There must be. We have one for you. But why should you listen to me? Like, what do I know? Right? I'm just a guy. Well, no, I'm not just a guy. I'm actually a communications technician by trade. So I was in the Air Force for almost 15 years doing a communications technician role. That included things like communications. Satellites and radars and radios and communicating and getting signals to and from places. So that's why I feel like I'm qualified to talk on this topic and why I created our own internet solution from scratch. So listen on, we'll tell you about it, we'll tell you why it's the best and what the alternatives are, why it's better than the alternatives, all that sort of stuff. Keep tuned in and hopefully you can learn something and I can teach you something, and the end result is that everyone can have better internet while they're traveling around our beautiful country in all these awesome remote spots that have terrible internet connections. Alright, so we have lots of feedback from lots of people on our internet solution. People are all really happy with it. So far, there's we know about 100 people have bought our internet package. So a small disclaimer at the start of the video here, we get a small amount of money for every package that Telco Antenna sell for the overland exposure package. So we kind of put this kit together using separate parts from them and then ask them to put a package together, and then we can offer a discount for you guys on that package. And yeah, we get a couple of dollars back from that if you buy it. So if you do decide to go ahead with the purchase of an internet thing, please use that. Use the discount code, save a couple of bucks, and help us out. It's just like we could have negotiated something for a Cel-Fi or something for a RV Wi-Fi if we thought they were the best solutions, but this is what we put together as a package. Before we were sponsored or anything like that. So if you already have bought it, thank you very much, and I hope this video gives you some more information about it if you're not already happily using it. Alright, cool, let's go on. Alright, our package consists of an antenna, which is an RFI antenna, consists of a mast, which is a 6.7 meter mast, a couple of connectors which are called SMA to TS9 connectors, and these connect your antenna to the modem, and a drawbar hitch, and that specifically attaches to your drawbar on the Caravan or your rear bar, which is what we've got it on, and it lets you flip it over like a jockey wheel so that the mast can just stay flat like that, and it's really easy to pack away. And you can keep it flat for storage while you're driving and stuff, and then just put it up really quickly when you get to your location. The last thing that our package is, but not from Telco Antennas, is the Nighthawk modem. And so this can be purchased from Telstra directly, Telstra on a plan. A number of other places on the internet sell the Nighthawk modems. We like the M5, but you can also go down to an M2 or an M1, and I'll discuss the differences in these later in the program. But yeah, so the Nighthawk M5 is the last piece of the puzzle. So we've talked about the problem, and the problem is really bad internet in a lot of areas in Australia. Australia has a huge landmass, a very low population, and getting coverage everywhere is really bloody hard. And so we think that Telstra do a pretty good job, to be honest. And there's not a lot of places that we haven't been able to get reception with our kit. Right, so our setup solves that problem by using a directional antenna, which is better than an omnidirectional antenna, we'll go into that a bit later, on a mast, which gets it up high, and high is better than low. and it goes into a modem, and it uses a technology called MIMO, multi-in, multi-out. I'll get into that in depth later, but basically it's better than not MIMO. So, and all these things combine together to give you pretty much the best remote internet solution that you can get, with the exception of satellite. And we'll discuss satellite a bit further down as well. So I'm about to go into all of the details of hows and whys of our system and the competing systems. If you don't want to sit through that and you just want to know how our system works and how to put it up and how it works, how we find a tower, all that good info and questions and answers and things like that, skip through. We'll put a card up here to skip through all that stuff and you can just go straight to the details. So there are three main options that everyone talks about in this internet space, in this remote internet space. Now, it used to always be, everyone talked about the Cel-Fi and the Cel-Fi Go repeaters. We'll discuss them. Another option is the RV Wifi, and that gets discussed a fair bit as well because a lot of manufacturers actually include them in their caravans. And then the last option is the Nighthawk modem, which is getting much more popular after our internet article, and people have discovered the benefits of it. So first of all, we'll talk about the Nighthawk modem versus the Cel-Fi Go, because that's really the most commonly asked question. The Nighthawk can use both Telstra and Optus. It needs a bit of fiddling around in the configuration settings to use Optus on it, but it's not locked to any network, and that is a great benefit. And where there's a Cel-Fi, you just buy the Cel-Fi and it either works on Telstra or works on Optus, so you're really locked in there. The way the Cel-Fi works is it has an external antenna, and normally people will use a stick antenna, like an Omni antenna with that. And then it goes in, that plugs into the Cel-Fi, and then the Cel-Fi has an out port, and people get a little tiny little black panel antenna, and then that goes into their car or their caravan. And so what the Cel-Fi does is it takes the signal that it's receiving, so say it takes 1 bar of 3G or 4G or whatever from the external antenna, and then it rebroadcasts that signal out the little small tiny antenna to your phone. And so you're looking at your phone and your phone says you have 4 bars of 4G or whatever, when actually without the Cel-Fi you would only have 1 or 0 bars of reception. So people get the impression that the Cel-Fi is giving them, instead of 1 bar or 0 bars, it's turning that into 4 bars of reception for their phone. Now, that's not really true. All you're getting is that external antenna is picking up a better reception than your phone does, and then the Cel-Fi is broadcasting that out to a small area using that little black antenna. So it's not any better than just an external antenna on its own. It's not actually amplifying any signal or giving you any better data capacity than what an external antenna can do with just a modem. There is no point to having the Cel-Fi in the circuit if you have a better alternative, which we do. The Cel-Fi area of reception that it gives you where your phone or whatever works well is very small compared to the Wi-Fi range of the Nighthawk router. The other thing with the Cel-Fi is that it runs on 12 volt power, but it needs to be continuously powered, and it uses a fair bit of power as well. So we've owned a Cel-Fi, that's what we started out with, and we just weren't happy with it, which is why we developed this solution. So it needs to be constantly plugged into 12 volt, and it draws quite a bit of power to do that rebroadcasting business. Where the Nighthawk is powered by any USB-C port, so you just plug it into your Caravan anywhere, your car anywhere that has USB power, any wall wart, 240 volt, doesn't matter, and it's got a battery in it, and that battery lasts for a good 4 or 5 hours, we've found, providing full internet. So we'll quite often just pull the Nighthawk out of the Caravan if we want to work in the car, and we'll just put the Nighthawk in the car, just put it on the dash, and we'll have full internet while we're driving on the road. No need for powering it, nothing like that. So really, really good point for the Nighthawk. So there's a slight negative to having the Nighthawk, and I think it's a negative and a positive. If you're using the Cel-Fi repeater, you're using your own phone with like a data SIM in it, and you're just using that connection. You don't need a separate data SIM. Whereas with the Nighthawk router, you need a separate SIM that goes into that router. So for us, for example, we're on Telstra and we're on the 400 gig a month plan, which costs us $65 a month or $75 a month. And that's basically our home internet package that we use. So we also have internet on like a SIM card in our phone, so our phones work. Amanda uses Boost because it's really cheap, and she gets a 365-day renewal SIM with like, I don't know, 100 gigs of data or something for the year. But she'll mostly be using our Wi-Fi, so our home internet. And I also have a cheaper Telstra package on my phone, and then that actually uses data sharing. So our total allowance is like 500 gigs a month or something on our home internet, on our Nighthawk internet. I keep calling it our home internet, but that's because we live on the road. Our Caravan is our home, so it's hard to distinguish it. The other main competitor to the Nighthawk at the moment is the RV Wifi, and this is sold by an Australian company. I don't have anything to do with them. I've never really talked to them. This is just going off what I've seen from other people, and that is that the RV Wi-Fi is included with a lot of caravans. They've got it included as a pre-installed item. It's got no multi-in, multi-out, no MIMO. It's a single port, so it will never be as fast as a Nighthawk. So the RV Wi-Fi has no battery in it, and yeah, having no battery, I don't know. Yeah. It's not portable, so you can't take the RV Wi-Fi out of the Caravan and put it in your car or anything like that. It's kind of bolted into the wall in the cupboard. It's got no 5G at all. It only does 3G and 4G. We've found 5G is definitely spreading. Just recently we were camped down in Port Lincoln National Park, and we're actually about 15 kilometres away from the towers at Port Lincoln. And we had 5G there, and I was getting like 300 megabit a second downloads from our Nighthawk with no external antenna even needed, because it was a clear line of sight. So yeah. The included 3G, 4G antenna with the RV Wi-Fi is really bad. It's a little tiny one that does not do anything really. The Nighthawk will have a better antenna internally than that external antenna. So if you do have an RV Wi-Fi, or you're getting one, definitely get a better external antenna for it. The plus side is it has a port for an external antenna at least, so you can put a proper external antenna on your roof of your Caravan or whatever. You can even use our directional antenna if you already have an RV Wi-Fi and you want to move over to a better antenna setup, and that'll be better. So still not as good as a Nighthawk with our setup, with our antenna and mast, but better than the included antenna with the RV Wi-Fi. Right, so I've dissed on these a little bit now. I've dissed on the Cel-Fi, I've dissed on the RV Wi-Fi. I have to put a disclaimer in. If you already own a Cel-Fi and you are happy with the results that you're getting from it, you don't need to change. You can improve it with a better antenna and mast, possibly, or changing to the Nighthawk, which will give you better internet speeds. But if you're happy with how it's working, no, I don't care. I don't have a problem with it. You can use it. It's no skin off my back at all. Same with the RV Wi-Fi. If you have an RV Wi-Fi and you are happy with it, by all means, enjoy. You don't really need to go down and comment, I've got an RV Wi-Fi, it's way better than Nighthawk and stuff like that. Don't bother, I don't care. Yeah, so if this video is really for if you are trying to choose what to buy, what solution to buy, or you're not happy with your current setup. That's who this video is for. And there's two different types of antenna that you'll come across. It's called an omnidirectional antenna, which is like a stick antenna that you'll find quite often. Most UHF radios will use an omnidirectional antenna. You'll see them on people's bull bars. They're called a stick antenna or like a pole antenna sort of thing. And the other option is a directional antenna. And so your TV antenna in your house or whatever is a directional antenna. It's called a Yagi type, and it'll point towards where the tower is that's broadcasting the signal. Now there's a few different types of directional antennas, but the main thing is the pros and the cons. An omnidirectional antenna broadcasts out in 360 degrees and receives 360 degrees wide. So it doesn't need pointing, it doesn't need really setting up. As long as your omnidirectional antenna is pointing in the air at the sky, it'll get whatever it can get. So there's a really strong benefit to that, and that's why if you've got a vehicle solution or you're looking for a vehicle solution, we will recommend an omnidirectional antenna for that. If you're looking for I've parked my Caravan in a really remote place and I can't get internet, we'll advocate for a directional antenna. And the reason for that is that the directional antenna, the one we use is really small and light, and it has about a 30-degree beam. So if you think of the 360 degrees, 30 degrees of that is a little wedge. And so you'll point your antenna, and all of the power of your antenna and modem and everything, and the tower's power will be pointed straight at that directional antenna. So by using physics, you will get a better reception and a better connection with a directional antenna right next to an omnidirectional antenna, because the omnidirectional antenna has to broadcast 360 degrees and has to receive 360 degrees, where the directional antenna just goes, you know what, I only want that little bit to point towards the antenna, to point towards the tower. So to summarize, moving vehicle or stationary vehicle or someone who doesn't want to bother setting up anything, omnidirectional antenna. And then anyone who wants an even better stable connection when they've stopped somewhere, directional antenna is the way to go. Now there's a few different types of directional antennas. There's really big and heavy Yagi antennas and LPDA antennas. We've tried them. They're too big and heavy pretty much for our setup. And then you've got the light panel antenna, which is where we've gone. So it's got the really good gain, which means it has quite a lot of throw to the tower, and it's quite good. So that's why we recommend that one, for size and weight and the fact that it's directional. Alright, another thing that you might find is that you have good reception to a tower and like 3 bars, 4 bars of 4G, and you're still getting really slow speeds, and you'll go like, why am I still getting slow speeds? I've got a really good connection to the tower. The answer is that the tower is overloaded. Now this happens reasonably regularly, especially peak hours, like at night and stuff like that. And the way you'll know this is you'll have decent reception, and like in the middle of the night or like 2 AM or early in the morning you'll get great speeds, and then come peak hour you get terrible speeds. Usually your uploads will still be quite quick, but your downloads will be really slow. So there's not much you can do about this. The advantage of a directional antenna like we have is that we can try and point to a different tower. So if there's, for example, in Cairns, there was one tower near the caravan park we're staying at that was really bad and really saturated. And then there were other towers nearby in different directions that were okay. So we were able to point the directional antenna away from the bad tower and towards the tower that had capacity. I don't know why, but yeah, sometimes that's what happens, and that's a good solution and a good reason to have a directional antenna. Let's talk about masts and why they're important. So you don't need a mast is optional. We highly recommend it because the rule of thumb is that for every meter of height you go up with an antenna, increases the reception by about 1 decibel. That might not mean much to you as a non-technical person, but it's quite good. So the higher the better, the higher you can get your mast the better. The one that we use from Telco Antennas is really sturdy. It's quite lightweight, it's all aluminium. It's manufactured here and it just works to hold this amount of weight really stably. So we find that as a really good option. Alright, we'll now go into the Nighthawk and why we specifically chose it. So There's a few different options here, but the Nighthawk is really good because it's designed to be portable. It's compatible with our lifestyles, our caravanning lifestyles. It's powered by 12 volt. It has a battery in it. It's designed to move around and it's kind of rugged. You can go with the M1, the M2, or the M5 is the newest one. We've gone with the M5, and that's purely because we like 5G. People say you don't get 5G outside of main cities. That is very incorrect. You get 5G a lot of places. Telstra have done a lot of work rolling it out to places. We were in Tumby Bay in South Australia, a population of like 400 the other day, and it had 5G, and we were getting really good speeds there. So that's the reason we go for the M5 over the M1 or the M2. If you already have an M1 or M2 and you're happy with it, go with it. If you don't think you want 5G and you don't want to spend the extra money for an M5, that's fine, go with the M1 or the M2. We have noticed, we have some friends that have the M2, and we have noticed that the M5 does have better Wi-Fi range. So I can be probably 100 meters away from our caravan and still get Wi-Fi. Even further, I've been like a couple hundred meters away actually and still gotten Wi-Fi through our setup. So that's why we chose the Nighthawk M5. Oh, and it has really good internal antennas as well, I forgot to say that. It's got better internal antennas than a flagship phone. So probably about 50% of the time, if we're reasonably close to civilization, we won't need to put out the antenna in the mast. We'll just use the Nighthawk M5 sitting on the kitchen bench or on a next to a window, and it'll be perfectly fine. So let's talk prices. I have to refer to my notes here for this one. So our setup, the antenna, the mast, the drawbar mount, antenna, mast, drawbar mount, and the connectors to connect it to the modem from telco antennas are about $570 as a package with a discount code that we've got. And the Nighthawk modem varies in price. It's between $700 and $800 from Telstra if you want to buy it outright. The alternatives, so the Cel-Fi is about $1,149 with just an Omni antenna and no mast or anything like that. So the Cel-Fi unit itself is quite expensive for what you get and what it does. And the RV Wi-Fi is about $500. That's just on their website. That's the price that I found on there. So that is obviously cheaper, and you could buy an RV Wi-Fi plus our antenna and mast setup and stuff from telco antennas, and that would be an okay solution. But I don't know, if you want to do that, you can do that. So ours is a little bit more expensive, a little bit, but I think in the scheme of things, it's like $100 or $200 difference. And in fact, if you got the mast and stuff with the Cel-Fi, you'd be more expensive than our setup. So yeah. So first of all, when we get to a location, we'll just quickly check with our phones and see if we need the antenna and the mast up. If we do need it up, first thing we'll do, we'll take the antenna out, we'll attach it to the end of the mast. Then I'll undo the mast screws and we'll extend the mast out fully. We'll go after that, we'll walk back to the drawbar hitch, we'll pull it out, and we'll gently walk the mast and the antenna up until they're all the way up and locked in. After that, we'll go and we'll run the cables inside. We run ours next to the awning and then in through our kitchen window. Where our antenna cable comes into the Caravan, you can see it here, and it goes up and in, and I'll show you that from the inside. This is where the antenna cable comes inside, and so we've got this style of blinds. What we've done is they're magnetized to each other, and so we've actually got a little bit of foam, the little foam you can get from Bunnings, and we've put it along the join there and then left a little channel at the end. The cable comes into that, and then the blind goes down over the top, locks it in place. Now it's still magnetized. We made a bit of a mistake with ours, and we could have had the channel that the cable comes in a lot smaller, that's what we recommend you doing, so no bugs and insects can get in. There are other ways to put it in, including going through a roof hatch, which is what some friends of ours have done. They've brought the cable in through a roof hatch. Well, someone else has sent us through this cool thing they made. It's a 240 volt connector that they've adapted to put some SMA connectors through. But I mean, ultimately, you bring it in however you want to bring it in, and it doesn't really matter where the modem sits inside as long as you can get access to some power, either a USB port or a power point, whatever you want. These are the connectors. These are called the TS9 to SMA connectors. So on the end of the antenna cable here, these are called SMA connectors. And then what we need is an adapter that turns that into a TS9 connector. This is a TS9 connector on the modem. So what we've got is these pigtails that go in and into the modem, and they connect to the modem up. Okay, we're going to go really quickly through the easiest and simplest way to make the system work once you've purchased it. So you've put your antenna up a bit, you've connected your modem in, and you're looking at it and it says 0 bars or whatever, and you're like, okay, how do I know, how do I find out where to get reception? Now the real basic easiest way is to either take the modem up with you to the tower, to your little mast, and spin the mast around and just gently, slowly spin it around, and you'll see the reception change. If you've got any chance of getting reception, you'll see bars appear. Or you can leave the modem inside and your significant other can yell out to you when it gets reception. That's what we do. Or you can actually log into the modem on your phone and just look at it on there. So there's a few different options there. We use all three of those options just depending where we are. And just a gentle, slow spin around like that. Nice gentle spin around, and you'll see if there's any towers within range. Now, if you still don't get anything and you think you should be getting something, try it higher and try it a little bit slower, and maybe the best bet might be to point towards nearest town, because usually that's where a tower is going to be. And then we also have the option of the Aus Phone Towers app, and I'm going to run through that now with you, how to use it. First of all, you pull the handle out, you drop the mast down, walk it out, and then you unscrew the black connectors, put the mast back in, remove the antenna from the mast, wrap the cord around the antenna, and store the antenna somewhere safely inside. We use a Noki strap like this just to stop the mast bouncing around. Alright, so we're going to quickly go over the Aus Phone Towers app and how it works. I'll put a screen recording of my phone sort of up on the side here, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. So it shows your current location when you load it up, and it says where I am. We're at Coffin Bay at the moment, and so it's telling me that with 69% confidence I'm using this tower over here. Now on the Aus Phone Towers app, it's got some options, so you can choose which tower you want to look at. So for example, I don't really care about Vodafone, so I'm not going to look at Vodafone anymore. But I do care about Telstra and Optus. Now Optus is always represented by the little blue mark there, and Telstra Tower is always represented by the little bluey purpley mark. So we're mostly interested in Telstra Towers, and I can see that in this area around Coffin Bay, this is the tower that I'm on, and I'm going to look at it and it's going to show me exactly what services and all the details about this tower. So this is all like government info that the carriers have to put out there for radio licensing sort of stuff, so it's all completely accurate information. Now I can tell you that it tells you where the tower is, it tells you how high off the sea level the tower is, which is useful sometimes. It tells you exactly what services are on that tower, and so from this is quite useful for us. We can tell that 4G 778 megahertz, this is like the low band 4G of Telstra, And this is what you'll use most of the time because it goes the furthest. Being a lower band, it propagates further along on the radio patterns, and most of the time you'll be connected to this sort of frequency with your Nighthawk. Now, it's telling us that they have 20 megahertz of bandwidth here with a 4 by MIMO. That's good. It means if you have 4 antennas, so like your phone has 4 antennas or whatever, you'll be able to aggregate those 4 services to get a faster connection for you. So anything that says 1 times MIMO, you know you're not going to get a better connection with the 2 antennas, like the proper antenna that we use, but anything 2 by or above, it'll be good to go. Most towers now use at least 2 or 4 by MIMO. It also tells you what the capacity of the tower is on that frequency. So it says here that the total frequency can be 395 megabit per second, the total bandwidth for that frequency. So that means that everyone that's using that Telstra in the area shares that 395 megabit connection. The only thing is it doesn't tell you how many people are using it, so you can't really tell, like, but if your tower's getting overloaded or something like that, it's probably because it only has that amount of bandwidth available for everyone to use. Now, 3G we don't really care about, and then we've got 4G at 815 megahertz and 4G at 1825 megahertz here. These are really it for close in, these higher frequencies, and usually if you're remote, you won't be getting them. But if you're in close, normally like the Nighthawk at the moment, we've got without an external antenna, we'll be picking up the 1815 or 1825 and it'll be giving us really good speeds. Now, the other thing that Aus Towers App does that's awesome is it gives you radiation patterns. And this is something that's really cool to be able to access this kind of information. And it's basically telling you which direction the receivers and transmitters on this tower are pointing at. So right in here you can see those high frequencies, the 1815 and the 1825. You can see their estimated range, and this is like just with a normal phone, not with an antenna. So with an antenna you probably double that, but you know, it's still not a whole massive lot of distance. Whereas you can see like the 778 megahertz goes out further and the 3G goes out even further again. You can see the sort of ranges that you're talking about there. Now, different towers are all different, so we'll click on a different tower. Right, this is a little tower, this is what I call a micro tower. And this one actually isn't too bad. It's got a single little thing on top of it with a few different antennas pointing in a few different directions, servicing quite a small area compared to the other big tower down at Coffin Bay. You can see that in just the reception patterns and things like that. And then you can even find like, there's even smaller ones. So this one up here, look at how small that one is. This is telling you that this tower in Coulter has a little omni antenna on it because it's only got one sort of radius around it. And you can see it's only got 4G at 778 megahertz. Its total bandwidth is only 98 megabit and it's only got 1 by MIMO. So that's a little small tower. It'll get you internet, but if you can get to a better tower, that's a better idea. Now, we recently stayed at Coles Point, which is just over here, and we had really pretty good internet here, and we were actually pointing our directional antenna north, straight north from where we were camped, and we were getting to the antenna at Mount Hope up here. And it was a fair way. It was like 45 to 50 kilometers, and we were getting that 4G, 20 megahertz, 1 by MIMO. That was actually usable. That was pretty good, especially considering where we were. And I chose that because it was a better reception from going all the way up there to Mount Hope than it was to going across to Coulter to this little tiny tower here. So I hope this has shown you a bit about the Aus Towers app and how it works and how we use it. If you're going somewhere where you think there won't be any reception, I forget sometimes, but if I remember, it's quite good to be able to like go, say, I'm going up to over here, somewhere random, where are the nearest towers? And you say, okay, there's a tower's up there at Elliston. Like, it's a pretty good bet there's towers in a town anyway, but there's towers up there at Elliston, and there's also a tower I can connect to down here at Mount Hope. So yeah, I hope this has been useful and informative for you. And if you've got any more questions about it, either hit up the app developer or ask us below and I'll try and answer them for you. So obviously, what's the claim without proof, right? So here we're in a pretty remote location at the moment, and we've done a bunch of speed tests for you. Here they go. This is a speed test using just the Nighthawk on its own. This is a speed test using the Nighthawk and our directional antenna solution with MIMO. This is a speed test using the Cel-Fi Go with an Omni antenna. This is a speed test using the Cel-Fi Go and a directional antenna. Alright, another couple of points. So Optus versus Telstra gets asked all the time. We're on a lot of Facebook groups and gets asked all the time. So Telstra, much better in the bush and in remote areas, 100%, than Optus. Saying that, some areas Optus cover and Telstra don't, and some areas Optus have much better speeds and coverage than Telstra. An example of that would be in Cooktown in Queensland. Telstra has really poor speeds in that area on that tower, and Optus do not. Optus have great speeds on that tower. Why? I don't know. Telstra just didn't do it properly, or don't know. But anyway, there are some places that you can get Optus coverage and you cannot get Telstra coverage. Ormiston Gorge, there is a little black spot satellite connector and stuff, and because we had the ability to put an Optus SIM in our modem, we were able to have internet while we were camped there. Our friends were not, because they only had Telstra. So we always advise carrying at least one Telstra SIM and one Optus SIM. Generally you'll use the Telstra, occasionally you'll use the Optus. The Nighthawk can use both, just needs a little bit of fiddling. So the other question that gets asked is Telstra retail versus Telstra wholesalers. So there's heaps of companies that use Telstra as a carrier, and they don't get the full Telstra network. So if you're in cities and stuff, it'd be fine. But as soon as you get remote, a lot of the areas are only covered by Telstra retail. And that means you have to go through Telstra themselves. The only other option is Boost. And for some reason, I don't know why, Boost get the full Telstra network. So if you're looking for a prepaid, cheaper solution than Telstra that still has the full Telstra network, go for Boost. That's the only real alternative. One other thing that I'll address is that people ask, I really need voice communications. Should I buy it? Should I go for a Cel-Fi if it's better at voice than a Nighthawk? And the answer is no. Most Telstra plans and phones now, and Boost as well, have a service called VO Wi-Fi. It's called Voice over Wi-Fi, and basically they'll use the internet to make the phone call. So you don't actually need a voice network anymore. As long as you can get some internet reception with your setup, with the Nighthawk and the antenna, you'll be able to make and receive voice calls fine. We get asked regularly about using this setup on the move, or what is the best setup to use on the move while you're driving, because people want to do work while they're driving. It makes sense, like it's a lot of dead time. So if you have to do work, you may as well do it while you're driving, right? Or while your partner's driving. So this setup, this antenna setup and stuff will not work while you're driving. Do not even try it. Now what will work is if you use an omnidirectional antenna on your vehicle and plug it into the Nighthawk modem. So remove your Nighthawk modem from your Caravan, carry it over to your car, and either use it in your car without an external antenna, will quite often just work. And if it doesn't work and you find you need more reception, then get a little omnidirectional antenna on your bull bar or something. The higher the mounted, the better. And then plug that, have a cable running into the car, and just plug that into your Nighthawk, and it'll work on the road like as best as anything, as good as anything can work. So if you're on the road and you literally want to work on the road while you're driving, that's the solution for you. Let's talk about the future. How exciting. So currently this is the best ground-based solution that is available. And there aren't really any good satellite solutions available yet. However, there's an elephant in the room, and that elephant is called Starlink and Elon Musk. So you might have heard of Elon Musk. He started Tesla and SpaceX companies. They do all the space launches. They have a new system called Starlink, which is epic. It's really cool. The way it works is it's called a low Earth orbit satellite system, and they launch heaps and heaps and heaps of little tiny, like not tiny, but smallish satellites, and they are in low Earth orbit. They're about 550 kilometers above us, and they continuously circle the Earth. Now they've launched a lot of them. There's about 1,500 in the air at the moment in January of 2022. And they basically have global coverage of satellites. However, they need ground stations as well at the moment, and that is where Starlink falls down at the moment. So we currently have a Starlink kit and we're testing it out for you guys, but it's just not available everywhere yet. So it's really limited, and it's definitely not mobile. It requires 240 volt power and all that sort of stuff. So at the moment, we would not recommend Starlink as your internet on the road solution. In the future, it will be amazing, and as soon as they release a mobile version and enable all of Australia, it'll be epic. But we just don't know how far in the future that's going to be. So it could be this year, it could be the end of 22, it could be 23, it could be 24. Alright, so we need a full disclosure for everyone. If you are in the middle of nowhere with absolutely no phone towers anywhere around, anywhere, you won't get internet with our solution, or any solution except satellite. So like the range is probably around 40-50 kilometers from a tower is the max that you'll get. So there's still quite a few spots through the middle of Australia and like deserts and things like that where you just won't get anything at all. I mean, it is what it is. Nothing else can fix it except when Starlink becomes mobile and Australia-wide. So, yep. Alright, we'll finish up the video there. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, drop them below. We'll get to them and answer them. There's more detail on our website. We've written 2 articles now on this subject, and they've been very well received and everything. So we'll link them up here. And again, any questions, drop them below. If you like our content, subscribe. Maybe you haven't come across us and this is the first time you've seen us, in which case normally Amanda does all the talking, and she's much more entertaining than I am, and better looking. So make sure to check out one of our other videos while you're here.